I want to welcome everyone to another ALK Talk. This is kind of a special one for me because normally we have doctors from across the world presenting, but this is special because we have our own ALK positive members who are presenting, and Mark and the rest of the medical committees. Colin's here with us. Ken is in Asia. But I mean, these guys give up so much time, the people who are on these committees. And some of the times they don't really get to speak very often. I know they were at the summit and they presented, but for me, it's a very special time because we get to have these people speak. And I'm Mark Rosenzweig. I'm a 12-year survivor, I guess, thriver, whatever you want to call myself. And I'm from outside Detroit, Michigan. And we do record these. So on the closed caption button on the bottom, if English isn't your first language, and if you need, you can switch it to whatever language you want. And our YouTube channel, which all these go on to, you can do the same thing. So check that out on YouTube. We have our own channel. And also our healing arts programs, which you can get to through our website, alkpositive.org on the top under, I think it was Living with ALK Cancer. You can see it. And you'll be shocked at the people who you meet in these groups. People from across the world jump in, and it's great to meet up with another person with their diagnosis. A lot of the times, we don't really get to have that avenue with other cancer patients. So please hop onto those. And I don't know, I guess we'll start with some polling questions. So I will launch those in a second. Did you fundraise in 2024? And if you did, or will you be fundraising this year? Sounds pretty simple. It's our favorite thing to do is to fundraise. When you think about it, with the funding being cut on a national level, and with us being only 3% of lung cancer patients, we really need to fundraise ourselves. That's just my own little plug. So I'm going to end the poll, share the results. Summer.
Okay, did you fundraise in 2024? 34% of you did. Thank you so much for your efforts, and you will find out tonight where they went. So thank you for that. And 66% of you did not. Will you fundraise for LCAM this year? 46% of you said yes. 54% of you said no. I understand. I'm not a fundraising girl myself. However, when I'm fundraising for my life, then it kind of changes it up a little bit.
Okay, if you fundraise, what is your preferred method of fundraising? Setting up an ALK positive team? If you make up a Facebook page or a social media fundraising campaign, or do you directly contact your family and friends, or create an actual fundraising event like a golf outing or a lemonade stand or whatever you did?
Thank you so much. If you fundraise, what is your preferred method? 10% of you like to set up an ALK positive team. Katie will explain just how easy that is to do later this evening. 17% of you make up, use Facebook or social media and do a fundraising campaign through them. 60% of you go directly to your family and friends, and 13% of you create an actual fundraising event. All amazing.
Have you ever participated in a clinical trial? If yes, please email networking@alkpositive.org so we can feature you in our LCAM campaign.
And sneak peek, you will find out soon that our whole Lung Cancer Awareness Month campaign, which is in November, is built around clinical trials. Because without clinical trials, as we know, the famous words of Dr. Christine Lovely, there is no treatment. We can't stress that enough.
Can we end this poll?
Have you ever participated in a clinical trial? If yes, okay, gotcha. Email, again, networking@alkpositive.org so we can feature you in our LCAM campaign. Okay, and you have to talk like that when you do your video. Teasing. Okay, 14% of you have been in a clinical trial, 86% of you have not. Yes, we're so fortunate, right, to have these amazing second, third generation treatments that most of us do not start with the clinical trial. So that makes so much sense.
I believe this is our last poll. Would you consider a clinical trial? Yes, no? Maybe if it was in my area, only if I progressed and had no options.
Would you consider a clinical trial? 77% of you said yes. Count me in. I also would for sure consider a clinical trial. No one is saying no, so that's great. Open mind, right? Open to possibilities. Maybe if it was in my area, exactly. We need accessible trials. That is key. So 6% of you said that, and 21% of you only if I progressed and had no options. Totally understand that as well. Again, we like having those options in our pocket, right?
Okay, I'm gonna pass the microphone that is, to the one and only Summer Farman.
Dun, dun, dun. Hello, everyone. It's me, Summer Farman from Hershey, Pennsylvania. ALK positive patient since 2020. So appreciate all of you being here with us this evening for our Lung Cancer Awareness Month sneak peek. We are going to have Mark and Sadia on shortly to tell us what is happening while we are all sleeping and the medical committee is hard at work. But before that, hold on, everyone. We have a few words. I need this little thing to go away here.
Good evening, ALK Positive community. Apologies that I can't be there tonight. I'm on my way to go advocate with pharma and global oncologists about why ALK Positive patients should have more research opportunities. Please stick around and hear Mark and Sadia as they talk about the exciting things going on in the medical committee. Also, you don't want to miss the philanthropy section. The Lung Cancer Awareness Month is one of the best times of the year to work together to tell those personal stories and raise funds for the much needed research. Thank you again.
Yes, so of course we wish that Ken was with us this evening, but instead he is off advocating for all of us. So we are so fortunate and so lucky to be in the position to have him forging the way ahead. So without further ado, Mark Muscovich, take it away, please. What's been happening in the fabulous world of the medical committees?
Well, thanks, Summer. A great deal has been happening. Let me introduce myself before I go to share my slides. So my name is Mark Muscovich. I was diagnosed when summer was in 2020, stage 4. Fortunately, I've had a stable partial response to alectinib, and after an initial partial reduction of tumor volumes, I've been stable, fortunately, for these last 4.5 years. Uh, I was diagnosed in 2020. I joined the medical committee. Colin recruited me in 2021. And in 2023, I joined the board of directors. So Sadia and I are going to give you a little update this evening about what the medical committees have been up to. All right. So can people see that first slide? It's October 5th.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. So ALK Positive really spent substantial time about a year ago defining its 4 strategic goals. And the first one, of course, is to drive research to a cure. The second is to educate and empower patients, care partners, and clinicians so we can improve patient quality of life and life expectancy. We, of course, have to acquire the resources that we need to achieve those goals, and we strive for excellence in operations, governance, and growth. And tonight we're going to touch on at least 3 of these 4. We're going to talk about driving research to a cure. We're going to talk about education and empowerment, and we're going to talk about acquiring the resources we need to do this work. So how do we develop new cures for cancer and for ALK positive lung cancer? Well, there are basically 4 steps. There's discovery research where we make discoveries, new liabilities and insights into how we can kill ALK positive cancer cells. There's preclinical research in which we actually test those discoveries against ALK positive cancer cells in dishes and in animals, and ultimately in people. That preclinical research, if it's sufficiently encouraging and suggests sufficient safety, is transitioned then into clinical trials. And clinical trials allow us to vote therapies up or down. Either they will work with acceptable safety, or they will fail, or they will work but have unacceptable safety and therefore be unapproved. So those that work and have acceptable safety, we approve, the FDA approves. Those that fail on one or both criteria are not approved. And those therapies then move into medical practice. And so these are the 4 steps, and our medical committees are focused on the first 3 steps, on the discovery research, the preclinical research, and the clinical trials. So this mission of the medical committees, there is one overarching medical committee, and we have a number of subcommittees: the Research Acceleration Committee, the Clinical Trials Committee, the Translational Investigations Committee, and Ken has spoken about those at Summit. I won't go over those again unless there are questions later. But our mission really is to try to ultimately enable the development of new therapies and biomarkers that are going to benefit our community, ALK positive cancer patients. We need therapies, as indicated on the left, to kill the TKI sensitive cancer cells and eliminate cells that are tolerant of the TKIs. They call them the drug tolerant persister cells, so we can try to achieve a state of minimal residual disease. We need new therapies for TKI ALK positive resistance that's either mediated by changes in the ALK protein itself or by changes in what are called bypass pathways, other paths of cell signaling that intelligent cancer cells use to get around the TKI. And then finally, we really need to find new immunotherapies that are based on antibodies or vaccines that will boost the efficacy of our immune system to kill cancer cells. The medical committee works hard. And just in 24, as Ken summarized here, we met with 34 different biotech companies with 23 universities and 17 pharmas. So we're meeting every week in the RAC, every 2 weeks in the Clinical Trials Committee, every 1.5 to 2 weeks in the Translational Investigations Group. And this is just a summary that I will not walk through entirely tonight, but Ken shared this at Summit. And it shows really the kind of ambitious activities we've been pursuing in 2024 to 2025, from mid-year to mid-year, bracketed by our summit in July of 2024 and our summit in July of 2025. So let me see. I'm not sure why I'm not advancing. There we go. So, and in fact, what we're going to talk about is what has actually begun to happen in 2024 and 2025 and is going to happen in 2026. In addition to having all those meetings we talked about, we have been working with companies and with university scientists, doctors, and even a few PhDs to encourage, motivate, and enable the testing of therapies against ALK positive cancer cells, and then the movement of those therapies into clinical trials. And tonight we have great news about, in fact, the growth of the clinical trial base for ALK positive lung cancer. So again, how do we create these new therapies? So the scientific discoveries that scientists make drive the creation of new therapies. What the Research Acceleration Committee does, in large part, is we look at the literature. Sometimes articles are recommended by people in the Facebook group or in the ALK Positive website communication channels. Often they're brought up by members of the RAC, and we say, here's a new therapy that might be specific for ALK positive cancer cells, or while not specific, could potentially kill ALK positive cancer cells. Should we be trying this against ALK positive lung cancer? We then take that and we move that into preclinical research that establishes whether, in fact, a new therapy we think has the potential to help us can actually kill our kind of lung cancer, our ALK positive lung cancer. And then for those potential therapies that qualify based on preclinical research, we then are working on moving those into clinical trials. I've been working with the medical committee now for 5 years. It seems like yesterday when I started working with Colin's encouragement. But in fact, what I've seen is there's been a shift in what I call the center of gravity of our investments, where we've moved from discovery research, where we were focused initially, and we are moving closer and closer to the clinic. So our center of gravity is moving from discovery into preclinical research, and in fact, now moving toward clinical trials. So what has been happening? A year or two ago, we might have been able to talk about 1 or 2 clinical trials for ALK positive lung cancer patients. This is a depiction of the clinical trials that are basically beginning in 2025 and began in 2023 and 2024. And I'm not going to walk through all of this information. It's going to be available if you want to go back and review it after the talk in the recording. You can freeze the frame and look at it. But there are a couple of take-homes. One is that whereas a couple of years ago there were 1 or 2, or at most 3, clinical trials for ALK positive patients, this diagram shows that actually beginning in 23, 24, and now in 2025, there are a total of 5 trials, 3 of which are beginning this year. And the green arrows on the far left means that the ALK Positive Medical Committee and your investments in ALK Positive have contributed importantly to the fact that those trials exist and are coming into existence. All right. So in fact, collaborations with the University of Michigan, with Astellas, which is a pharma company, with BioNTech, another pharma company, and with Immunity Bio, which is a biotech, those are all motivated by ALK Positive. And either we've motivated them and or we are actually funding a number of these trials. If we look at the next slide, this is what's going to start happening in 2026, even more trials. So that in fact, we have a total of 11 trials. 1 started in 23, 1 in 24, another 3 in 25, and these 6 are intended to start in 2026. It's a vast array of opportunities for us to find out if new therapies can work to improve and extend our lives and potentially to cure our cancer. Again, the green arrows here indicate the 4 trials for 2026 where we have had essential roles as ALK Positive and as the medical committee and through your investments in motivating the creation of these trials and funding a number of these trials. So it's really an exciting time. And there's in fact a 12th trial that's under discussion very actively right now. So the medical committee, all that work, all those meetings, all those discussions, which Colin initiated in a sense when he formed the medical committee and Ken has carried forward as he's taken over leadership of the medical committee, are leading to these possibilities where we can find therapies that are going to work for some of us and we hope eventually work for each of us and all of us. As Summer mentioned, and as Christine Lovely has mentioned, I've rephrased this in another way. If there are no new therapies without new discoveries, there are no new therapies without clinical trials, and there are no clinical trials without qualified enrolled patients. And in fact, the medical committee has been working, Sadia in particular with Ken, has been working to understand the geographic distribution of patients and existing clinical trials to look to the future as well. And so I want to hand this next slide over to Sadia. So Sadia, would you take over here?
Great. Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Sadia Yarkov, and I joined ALK Positive in August of last year as medical team project manager. I work with Ken and Mark and our medical committees to drive our research forward. I do want to, talk about the clinical trial committee here, which is one of our 5 medical committees. And our goal really is to facilitate clinical trial development, enrollment, and access for our patient community. So what we want to do is proactively identify any sort of limiting factors to recruitment across our priority trials. So it's important to understand, number 1, where our patient population is, and 2, where our clinical trial locations are. So this heat map here shows a representative sample of our ALK patients by state and the clinical trial options that are available for our oncogenic driver trials. The sample size here is limited. It's a total of 2,139 patients. And you can see that there are some states that are grayed out. That basically means that we had no data from patients in those states. So why is this so important, right? As expected, we have a significant population in California, we have patients in Florida, we have quite a few patients in the northeast part of the country. And we do see that, there's quite a few options for our patients who are living in those areas. But then we have states like Arizona, where there's absolutely nothing for our patients. And we believe that there's a significant population in that state, yet there's no clinical trial options for our patients living in Arizona. So a patient would basically have to travel all the way to California or to Texas to be able to participate in a clinical trial, which is not acceptable. Mark, can you just advance the slide, please?
Yes.
Thank you. There's a little. Perfect. So this is an ongoing effort as part of our clinical trial committee goal. And our next step is to basically increase the number of data points that we have, right? So again, this total sample size was obtained from 2 lab vendors, and we're actually working with others to get additional data to be able to further elaborate this heat map. And then we also want to identify clinical trial sites in areas where we don't have any options. And why is this so important, right? So we have a lot of partners that come to us. They'll show us their protocol. They want to make sure it's feasible for the patients. They'll share the consent form with us. And they also share the clinical trial sites with us. So we reviewed that, and then we can actually make recommendations and say, yes, we have a significant population here. This is a state where you actually want to open up a clinical trial site, and we can actually recommend study centers as well. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Sadia. So let me go to my second last slide. So let me just summarize. So the medical committee continues to work hard on our behalf, on your behalf, for all of the ALK positive patient community. And we're working to create more clinical trials so we can test more options for ALK positive lung cancer patients. This is critical because there are no new therapies without trials, and unless those trials show sufficient effectiveness and sufficient safety, a therapy will not be approved. It's important that we also are looking at a variety of therapies because our diseases, though they're all driven by ALK positive expression, by the expression of the ALK gene, each of us is different. We are in sort of subgroups or cohorts where the biology of our disease is similar, but each of us is different, one from another. And even within a cohort, there can be differences, and certainly between cohorts, there are differences. So we need to have multiple options that can be tested for individual patients and for multiple cohorts and subsets of patients. And as I think you can see from this illustration, illustrations that Ken and Sadi have put together, we're making progress. But we really need everyone to continue to advocate for our inclusion in clinical trials. And I assure you that we work very hard at this. Ken goes to many meetings, scientific meetings with oncologists and scientists and members of pharma and biotech every year. And Sadia and I and Summer and Colin and Yvonne Diaz and others have had the opportunity to join those meetings. And we participate in the meetings during the meetings that Ken has with these various potential partners. And there's been a lot of work, and there is a continuing process of working with potential partners to try to work toward testing our therapies and then trialing our therapies to see if they'll work for us. Of course, we need that discovery data. That there are no new therapies without discoveries. We need the preclinical data. And so we're continuing to fund some discovery work and some preclinical work, but we're moving again more toward a center of gravity that's more in the preclinical research area and the clinical trials area. Among those 11 clinical trials on the previous slides, we are contributing funding to 4 of those trials at the moment, at least 4 of those trials. And so we are using these data to persuade individual investigators and companies to include ALK positive lung cancer in their clinical trial portfolios. We need to acquire the funds we need to do the work. That was that third bullet in the strategic plan. And we'll talk about that later this evening. And Sadia will speak a bit more about clinical trials after I've wrapped up here. But we need the funds to pay per patient costs in some of the trials. As I said, we're contributing to 4 of the trials, but that means at the moment there are therefore 7 of the trials that we've not been asked to and not needed to, at least so far, make contributions for patient costs. And in addition, what we're usually doing is paying the costs for enrolling, for treating and monitoring and maximizing the assurances of safety for the patients in a trial. Drug costs are usually covered by a company that makes the drug. That drug is usually provided for free. It is usually part of the company's contribution to the trial. And per patient costs are significant. So in a clinical trial, they can range between $10,000 and $50,000 per patient for a 2 to 4 year clinical trial. Real money, significant funding, but it takes a great deal of funding, in fact, to administer these drugs, to meet frequently with patients, to monitor their progress, and to monitor their health and safety. And in fact, cell therapy trials can cost as much as $100,000 per patient. So these are a number of the elements where discoveries lead to preclinical work, lead to clinical trials. And now we have an increasing number of clinical trials and opportunities for our patients. And so I just want to wrap up with this last slide here. And we've talked about driving research toward a cure, and we've talked about educating and empowering our patients and care partners and clinicians. And now Sadia is going to spend some time talking about clinical trials. So Sadia, I'll stop my share and hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mark. All right, I just want to make sure everyone can see my screen. So can everyone see the ALK Positive page here?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So going along with what Mark said, right, the importance of clinical trials, what can we do as an organization to make sure that our patients have access to these trials, that our patients can easily find these trials, and that, you know, they are able to enroll in these studies, right? So we thought it was really important for us to invest in a tool that basically makes this entire process much easier for our patient community. So if you're familiar with our website, previously we had a spreadsheet that was being maintained, and that was terrific. But we wanted to make this easier, so we partnered with a company called TrialX to basically provide a tool that will help our patients find a clinical trial. And, you know, it's not just a tool that helps you find a clinical trial, it's a tool that actually helps me and our medical committees track how many patients are searching for trials, how many patients have actually reached out to a study center and then have been able to connect with someone at that site, and how many patients may have reached out but actually have not received a response, and to actually be able to contact the site directly to facilitate a response for a patient who may be interested in a clinical study. So if you actually go ahead to the ALK Positive website, there is a tab here under clinical trials. And then if you actually click on that tab, it'll take you right here to our clinical trials page. Now, this website has been revamped, and we want to make sure that this is easy to find and easy to use. So the widget that we're using has actually been embedded into our website. Okay, so if you scroll down, you can read a little bit about clinical trials if you're not familiar with that. And then if you scroll down, you can basically start using the widget to find clinical trials. There are a total of 142 trials currently in our widget. I do want to mention that all these trials have been reviewed by the medical committee. So Ken and I have looked at this. We've made sure that our ALK patients are eligible for these trials, and then they've been added into this widget. We do a monthly update, so if there is a new trial that's available, that trial gets added in immediately. There's 3 ways to search in this widget. So you can actually have this system guide you from start to finish. You can search on your own, or you can actually be notified as a volunteer about any future trials that might be available. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the simplest way to search, right? So if you're going here and you know that you're looking for a specific trial and you know the drug name and you just want to see where the sites are, the simplest way to do this is to basically click here. I want to search on my own. Okay, and then there's a number of screens that you'll have to go through that'll basically give you some general information. So the first screen here basically talks about a clinical trial. What is a clinical trial? Okay, and then from there you can type in the name of, let's say, the drug. So many of you might be familiar with NVL-655, and if you just go ahead and type that into keywords and you hit search, you can basically see what will come up for that. So you can see that we actually do here have an expanded access trial, and then we have 2 interventional studies that are available as well. It further breaks it down by the phase. okay? And then whether or not this is an online trial, in which case this is a no. All right, so if you click here, you can basically see that this is the Nuvalent Expanded Access Study, okay? Now, if you want to start over, which you're thinking, hey, okay, I want to find out where the sites are, because most patients, what is it that makes a clinical trial feasible? It's basically the distance from, where you live to this trial study center, okay? So if you basically want to be guided from start to finish, I want to show you that as well, okay? So again, the first screen basically talks about clinical trials. What is it? What is an interventional study versus an observational study? Okay. And then if you click on the next screen, it'll go into more details about why, as a patient, you should participate in a clinical trial. Okay. And then the last screen here, which basically gives you some general information, will talk about what happens during a clinical study. There is actually a document here called the Clinical Trial Primer. So if you actually click on this document, it's a very detailed, document that we put together, and it talks about the entire clinical trial process. So what are clinical trials? What are the different phases of the drug development process? It'll talk about human lung cancer trial phases. So we talk about phase 1, 2, and 3, expanded access trials, and even single patient INDs. And then it goes into why you should participate in a clinical trial, right? As Mark mentioned, if we didn't have patients participate, we wouldn't have all the drugs that we have today. And then funding for clinical trials. So where does the money come from for these clinical trials? And then participating and what to expect, okay? And then the questions that you should be asking both the investigator and the research staff before you decide to participate in a clinical trial study. So I won't go through this in detail, but this is available, for patients who may not be so familiar with the process and may have a lot of questions. So then we go ahead and continue on this widget. So where do you live, right? That's the key question. So let's just say we have a patient that lives in New York and is looking for a trial near them. You can go ahead and pick the distance that you're willing to travel. Most patients I would think would be willing to go up to 25 or 50 miles, but we'll go ahead and select 25 miles. All right. And then we click on next. And then it'll ask you a few questions. Have you received treatment for your ALK positive lung cancer? So we'll just go ahead and select yes, and that you can see there's 14 trials available if you have received prior treatment. And then it'll ask you for staging. So we'll go ahead and pick stage 4. And now there's 13 trials that are available. Okay. And then there's 2 ways to search in the widget. You can actually do it by location, or you can do it by the most recently added trial. So we're going to go ahead and do this by the most recently added. Okay. And then you can see here basically that the first trial is listed here, and it's 22.5 miles away. Okay. And then it shows you that there's actually 13 clinical trials at 33 locations within the 25 miles that is an option. Okay. So if we click on any one of these studies, sorry, it's a little slow here. But if you click on the study, basically you will get a summary, okay? And you can read a little bit about the trial, and then you have the capacity to be able to either send an email to the study center or to go ahead and just call the study center to learn more information. So this right here basically shows you a description of the study. It shows you what the eligibility criteria are, inclusion criteria, and then exclusion criteria. And then it also shows you some of the details about the trial. There is going to be an update to this widget. So in the next couple of weeks, there is actually going to be an option to select sort of an easy summary. So if you click on that option, it'll kind of break this down for you and provide just a much easier to read and understand summary of each clinical trial. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the results. And there is just one other thing that I do want to point out. So if you start over again, okay, I do want to mention that there is a clinical trial for every patient out there, right? So even if you don't want to participate in a clinical study right now, you can participate in observational studies, which we do have available. And that one of the best examples for that is the ALK Life study, right? So that's a study that's ongoing. That's a study that does not involve a drug. It's basically a study where you can sign up and you will get surveys that you complete, and that basically contributes to the research that we're doing to learn more about ALK positive lung cancer. So as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and click on observational, okay? And then it'll show which one is an online trial. So we'll say, yes, there's one observational online trial. And then it'll show you the study. And you can click on that to learn more and to participate. Okay, so this is the study here. This is one for genomic biomarkers in ALK positive non-small cell lung cancer at Mass General Hospital. So you can send an email to learn more. You can go ahead and just click on this call now button and be connected with the study center. Right, I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much, Sadia, and thank you, Mark. Oh, wait, you're still sharing. I can see myself twice here. Perfect, thank you. 2 summers is probably too many, so I wanted to spare you all. Anyway, thank you so much, Mark and Sadia, for and Colin here for helping to keep things moving in the right direction. Again, with Ken leading the charge. This is amazing work that's happening, and it's so exciting to see how we as patients can contribute. So. Things like the life study and seeing how things impact patients is huge. And that's one thing that we can all do. So let's take a couple questions before we jump to the philanthropy portion, and then we can conclude again with some questions. But Mark, let's see here. If you are in a clinical trial, do you need to change your current treatment?
Right. And so the question is maybe yes, maybe no. And so what you need to do is you need to look in the details of the treatment. When we speak with potential trial entities, we emphasize the fact that most of us are very reluctant to give up our TKIs. So be assured we take that message into all of these discussions. And it's going to depend on the case. In a number of these trials, you can stay on your TKI. In others, though, you can't, because, of course, sometimes you can't tell if a new therapy works if you're still on your old therapy. And sometimes you're progressing so rapidly on your previous therapy that you're willing to let that go against the chance that a new therapy will test. So it depends on the specific details of a given trial.
Thank you. That makes so much sense. And also, as Sadia said, there's a trial for everyone, but a lot of this could be like through an online study. It doesn't necessarily mean a treatment change, or if things are working, there's no reason necessarily to upset the apple cart. But could there be something to enhance your therapy? For sure. Also, I actually had a question too. A lot of this so far has been US centered. Talking about finding trials in the US and making them more accessible, which we know might be more attainable. But can either of you explain like our more long-term goals or any trials that are outside of the US?
Yes, absolutely. So our goal is to serve the global community, right? So whereas our focus has been primarily in the US, especially with the heat map that I showed, we absolutely want to make sure that there are trial options available everywhere in the world. And there are. So if you were to actually search the entire world or a specific country in TrialX, you would see trials that are available. And there's a number of them that are available in China and parts of South America and even in Europe as well. So yes, there are trials for patients in pretty much every country.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. We also had a question about MET amplification. Mark, did you see that one? MET resistance.
Yes. So one of the trials, in fact, the one that Tejas Patil is leading at the University of Colorado, does involve an antibody that binds to MET. So in fact, that is one particular trial. But again, with the TrialX tool, as Sadia indicated, you can look for MET as a keyword, and you can see what trials exist where people are testing various drugs and molecular entities, as they're called, different forms of drugs against MET. Yes.
Great, thank you so much. Do you perhaps know anything more about the Moffitt trial enrolling in 2026? Where do we stand with that, or what can you share?
So we're close to settling the details, but it doesn't have an NCT code yet because it has not been fully formed and fully submitted. But Ken and I think Sadia are confident that if we can put a few more ducks in the row, then we will be able to announce that it'll be approved for a trial and we'll be able to begin.
Fabulous. Okay, we're going to hold right there on our Q&A. I'm putting a little marker and we will come back. And right now, so thank you again, Sadia and Mark. And let's hand it off to our president, Kirk Smith.
Hey, Summer, thanks. So can you hear me?
You're great. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. So I do have, well, I'll introduce myself first. My name's Kirk Smith. I'm based down in Athens, Georgia. I was diagnosed in December of 2013 and I've been serving as the president of the organization for the past couple of years. And really just wanted to say, one, thank you all y'all for being here. And we wanted to, well, I have notes here from Katie, and I want to make sure I follow the notes because Katie gave me, otherwise I'll go off trail. And she does that because of my alectinib induced ADHD. So I'll have to follow, my notes. So, we're going to, as Summer and Mark have mentioned, we're going to be launching our Lung Cancer Awareness Month for 2025. And this year, our theme is going to be more research equals more time. And I'm going to start that with a question for all of y'all to think about through that is, what would you do with more time? More holidays, more graduations, more anniversaries? Every one of us, patients and our family or in our community, deserves those milestones. And looking at 2013 and Mark, our host Mark, not the other Mark, has been at this about the same amount of time as I have. And Mark, I would assume, like me, that when you were diagnosed, we did not have an expectation to still be here 12 years later. And because of the incredible advancements that we've been able to ride this wave of medical research advancements, we're still here and have had so many wonderful experiences and so much time. And a lot of that is meeting people like all of you, seeing so many of you in person at ALK Summits, and really having a lot of people that have become a part of our lives that have really enhanced our lives. This November, we have three main goals for the campaign. First is raise at least $2 million for research. Last year, our total was 3.5 million. I'd like us to hit 4 at least. We are well on the way towards that, but we'd like to get at least an additional 2 through the Lung Cancer Awareness Month campaign. With that, amplifying patient stories and voices, and then also closing the gaps in clinical trials, education, and awareness, which is a lot of what Sadia was just walking you through, and Mark was walking you through. Research is really the only path to more options. So, as Mark mentioned, a lot of what ALK Positive does is just fund trials, but we are also driving those trials under the leadership of Ken and the medical committee. We actively work with biotech and pharma to encourage ALK Positive cancer is included in so many clinical trials. And I hope you noticed in Mark's presentation, his comment, which could have easily been missed, was that it was 3 years ago. I think we had 1 clinical trial that was something that we were instrumental in making happen. And now, we are moving towards having 11, maybe even 12. I'm not really good at math, but I think that's a lot better than 1. And that's all from work done by our organization and by also people that are part of our organization. The gilteritinib trial wouldn't happen for ALK if Jeff Sturm and a few others as part of the medical committee hadn't seen a research paper and then shared it with Angel Chen at the University of Michigan to make it happen. Breakthrough Cancer Project, ALK Positive was not on their radar at all until an ALK patient went directly to them and got us on their radar. Behind the scenes work by Emily Venanzi, who's on this call, and Mark Muscovich, as well as a financial pledge to that, is what what has made that project happen. So it's all because of patience, not standing on the sidelines and waiting for something to happen, but making things happen. It's really impressive. So I guess I'll close out and pass it on to Katie, because I know I want to give her enough time so that she's presenting on what's going to be the peer-to-peer campaign. But I did want to make one comment about fundraising, noticing that I think it was 60% of the people said they probably wouldn't be taking part in fundraising, and Summer even said that she's not really wild about fundraising. And I think the best thing you can do with that is, one, reframe it. Don't think about it as you're asking for a handout, or don't think about it as fundraising, but think about it as giving people who care about you the opportunity to support you. And that has been, for me, the best way to really change how you think about that part of what we do. And I'll use as an example, tomorrow afternoon, as I said, I'm based in Athens, Georgia. And there's an ALK patient. I don't think she's on tonight, but she's on a lot of these ALKtALKs. Liz Van Hees, who was diagnosed almost 2 years ago, and she's in Atlanta. And I'm driving over. She and I are meeting at a golf tournament in Alabama tomorrow evening that has traditionally raised money for breast cancer research and for childhood cancer research. But a lot of the people that were part of the organization, or the organizers of this golf tournament, knew Liz. And when they found out she was diagnosed, they reached out to her and said, "How can we help?" And she told them about the ALK Positive organization, and they've decided that part of the money raised at this golf tournament will go toward ALK Positive. She didn't have to create a golf tournament. She didn't have to create t-shirts. She just gave people who cared about her an opportunity to support the organization. So think about it that way, and it can kind of change your approach to what you think about, or the way you see it, and you don't feel it as something painful that you're doing. Because believe me, every one of you has people that care about you and want to help, and are really trying to find a way to do that. So, Katie, I'm going to pass it on over to you, and let you and Yvonne share what you got next.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kirk. For everyone who doesn't know me on this call, my name's Katie Delaney. I serve all of you as the Philanthropy Operations Manager for the organization. I am based in Spokane, Washington, and I've been with all of you guys since July of 2023. So thank you for having me. I do want to start by saying thank you to everyone in the poll that had mentioned they already fundraise. All of this work is a huge thanks to you and your networks and everyone that you've reached out and already asked. And to those of you who said you were not maybe interested in fundraising, I hope that this entire presentation maybe inspires you to change your answer by the end. So thank you again. Let me share my screen.
And sorry, Katie, I won't interrupt you, and just say how fortunate we are to have Katie helping us and leading our way. She's been such an awesome addition to our team 2 years ago now. And so Katie, while everybody's here, I want to give you a shout out. So thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you. That absolutely means the world to me. And I'm honored to be sharing hope and hopefully inspiring and raising funds for all of the amazing work that our entire team does. So I truly appreciate being here, and I'm really excited about this campaign. We've worked really hard on it behind the scenes to make it possible. I also want to start this too by saying, even if you don't want to fundraise, which we obviously hope that we can encourage you to do, you can still participate in our campaign, right? So you can still make your card, we can still share it, and your story can still spread a lot of hope and awareness on ALK positive cancer. So if you would still like a card, there is no obligation to the fundraising portion of it. But I do hope that you guys all join us. So as Kirk mentioned, this November for Lung Cancer Awareness Month, we're uniting around one urgent truth that more research means more time. Every dollar raised fuels life-saving research and novel programs that bring hope within reach. Whether you give, you fundraise, or raise awareness, your support will accelerate the science, empower patients, and provide families with the most precious gift of all, time. So some key messaging throughout for Lung Cancer Awareness Month is that funding ALK positive research is the path to more time. We need new and improved treatments, and every donor, researcher, and trial participant fuels that progress. We're driving research for tomorrow's cures today, because in lung cancer, time is a luxury we don't have. Breakthroughs don't happen overnight, but funding accelerates progress. Every dollar brings us closer to the treatments patients need faster. So here's the story card, and to participate, all we need from you is an emotive photo that reflects what more time truly means to you, and to share what you would do with more time. This is a short quote, around 10 to 12 words, and we also need your name, location, and year of diagnosis. I want to paint the picture with these cards that your quote and your photo should really tell exactly what they're called, a patient story. So Summer, for her, more time means more football games with her family. And she ties that really nicely together with a photo of her and her family at a football game. So thanks, Summer, for your early submission and participation in Lung Cancer Awareness Month. To request your story card, it's really easy. You'll just head to ALKpositive.org and select on the button called Ways to Give. If you scroll down, you'll see all about this campaign, and you can click the submit your form. Here's what that form looks like. It will be a little bit longer than what's pictured here. But once you fill out the form telling us a little bit more information about yourself, there's an opportunity to upload your photo directly to this form. If that does not work for any reason, please don't hesitate to send it directly to us at networking@alkpositive.org. Now you have your card. And so after you request your card, we'll actually create that behind the scenes and send it back to you in the email that you provided on the form itself, with instructions of how to move forward with fundraising. On that form, you'll also select an option to allow ALK Positive Incorporated to use your card in our national campaign. So if you would not prefer us to have that card, there is an option to opt out. So now that you have your card, here's how to make your fundraising page. We'll send the link in the email, but that you can also easily find this right on our website on that Ways to Give page. All you have to do is fill out your information, set a goal, and head to your fundraising dashboard. This is what that fundraising dashboard looks like. You'll have your own personal thermometer, where all of the donations collected to your custom URL will go. All of these donations are then funneled into our larger campaign, but here you can track, thank, and acknowledge your supporters directly on your fundraising dashboard. There's also an opportunity to email up to 250 of your own contacts, share on Facebook, and then see all of your donations. I do want to highlight this resources tab. Within this resources tab, you'll see templates, custom graphics to share, tips and tricks on how to fundraise, and a lot more information in there. And then right here, you'll see your custom URL. You'll hit copy, and then this is what you share in your social media posts, your emails, your texts, anywhere that you can spread the word and ask for support. So now you have your card, you have your fundraising campaign page. What's next? You're going to post your campaign. So you're going to want to post your story card on November 1st, or maybe just a little bit before, with a post that explains the start of Lung Cancer Awareness Month and provides your personal story of what funding research means to you. You can use platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, email, maybe even the bulletin board at your work. Wherever you have personal networks leads to the best fundraising. Post regularly, update your followers on progress, and share. Don't forget to tag us on all social media platforms and use our campaign hashtags More Research, More Life and LCAM so that we can follow along your journey, share it, and help support. You can also spread awareness by sharing educational content and engaging with posts from fellow community members. Every like, comment, and share matters. You might reach someone who's never heard of ALK positive cancer before, so let's share why cancer research is so important. Everything you need to find to be successful in this fundraising can be found in that resources tab I highlighted earlier. But if you have any questions at all, if you would like to help with how to create an event, if you want more help on how to navigate your fundraising dashboard, or you just want to say hello, you can always reach out to us at networking@alkpositive.org. We are here to support you every step of the way. And thank you again for everyone for being here. And we do mean it. Please email us if there are any questions. We're always happy to support.
And Katie, thank you so much. That was fabulous. And very thorough. I do have a couple questions in from the chat. And I also want to say that when you do fill out the form and you receive your story card back with fundraising with fundraising links, should you choose to make a page, you will also have Katie's email address. So you can reach out to her also directly with questions for that. Okay, how about people that had a fundraising page in 2024? Do they need to start over? Do they need to clear anything? What should they do?
Great question. I love that someone asked this. So when you sign in to start fundraising under Lung Cancer Awareness Month, our platform is all connected. So you'll actually sign into the same donation page, and then it will ask you which page you want to fundraise with. So no need to delete your goal, no need to delete your other pages. It will create a new page for you, and then it will ask you which one you want to sign into. So you'll use that same login credentials, and you can access it. If you have any issues, please reach out. If you would like to continue fundraising from a previous page you've already started, please feel free to do that. You can always go in and update your page, whether that's changing out the photo to your new Lung Cancer Awareness Month story card, changing any language. All of the resources for Lung Cancer Awareness Month will still be in that resources page.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And if anybody else has any other questions, go ahead and drop them in there in the chat. Dana did talk about a shirt that she designed that did come out in the most recent email on Friday. But in the chat, she has the link for that if you would like to purchase a shirt that the proceeds will go to ALK Positive, but it supports the entire lung cancer community in the messaging. Also, Katie will be posting in a second the link to our website where you can go to find out how to make your cards or set up a page. And then I am also going to put in the chat a tool, except it's telling me that I have too many characters, so I'm gonna have to delete some. But if you saw in the last mail blast on Friday, or also on the Facebook support groups Colin had posted a while ago, again, another way that we can support our medical committees. They are looking at a DDI tool, a drug to drug interaction tool, because we all know we have to be so careful. Like your dentist puts you on antibiotics maybe before a dental surgery or whatever, and you're thinking, wait, is that going to interact with my TKI? So the medical committee is trialing this tool to see, could this be something that our community would benefit from? But to make sure, who better to ask than the ALK community themselves? Is this tool effective for you? Does it work? So I'm going to put in the chat the links to test out the tool. You'll put in your treatment that you're currently on. You'll put in any other medications that you take. Try it out. But then there's a part 2. Don't forget, everyone. To see for responding to questions about how that tool worked for you. The medical committee wants your feedback. You tried it, did it work? So for the people who have already completed that, thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate that. Let me see if I can chop off some of my message here. Okay.
I did try it, by the way, and it
Yeah.
really does work. And I think I had to go through the alphabet to figure out how many meds I was on. And because when you're on a trial drug, you have no idea what the interactions are, but it did work. So
Great. Thank you so much. Mark, do you see any other questions in the chat that Mark or Sadia might need to answer? Anything else?
just want to get Kirk or Colin's response about the medical committees and what they bring to the group, as in hope. And I know we talked a little bit about with Mark Musovich's slides, but I really want them to explain, and Kirk did mention it, that when we were, both of us were diagnosed around the same time, we had one drug basically at that point with clinical trials. But uh, and if Colin's still on, I can't see all the people, but Colin, if you're still on, if you just unmute and explain to everyone what these trials mean to everybody and the money that we raise, how much of that goes to funding, because I think that we represent such a small percentage of lung cancer patients around the world. The ALK positive, we have to really do our own fundraising. Am I wrong? Am I right? Anyone want to pipe in?
Yeah, absolutely right, Mark. So, hi everyone. I'm Colin Barton. I was diagnosed in 2016, live in the Denver area, and was co-founder of the organization in 2017 and chaired the medical committee from 2017 until Ken took over in 2022. And really, we all rely on funding. When I was diagnosed in 2016, for patients that had stage 4 lung cancer, the likelihood of reaching 5 years was around about 4%. Let that sink in, 4%. Reaching, not without progression, just surviving. And it wasn't going to be a good 4 or 5 years. It was going to be pretty rough. And nowadays, people get diagnosed, mostly get put onto lorlatinib, and the data is showing that after 5 years, there's a 60% chance, not that they're alive, there's a 60% chance that they haven't even had any progression yet. This is unbelievable. Kirk and Mark and myself would not have believed that was going to be the situation when we were diagnosed. And every single treatment, every patient here is benefiting from those clinical trials that happened years ago. And it does take time. I can't emphasize, unfortunately, we wish that you did the research today and you had a new drug in next year. That's just not the way it works. And so the good news is that nowadays we're likely to benefit from what we're actually funding. You know, when we funded in 2016, it was actually more to help others in the future, not expecting it to be for yourself. But nowadays there's a really good chance that it's going to be not only for everyone else, but also for yourself. So yeah, just do it. Put in what you can yourself. Don't be shy. Talk to your friends. People really love hearing the story. It's really quite exciting to know about the progress. So I'll hand it over to Kirk. I'm sure Kirk's got something else to add as well.
Um, well, I think that's great, Colin. And of course, Colin, your history with the organization is so phenomenal. I mean, we wouldn't exist without it. You know, again, that's a perfect example of patients that decided not to stand on the sidelines, but decided to help make things happen. And we've gone from that in just a very short amount of time to where we are now, and so much more coming. It's really exciting. There's not, and I sit in on every Tuesday RAC meeting that's part of the medical committee, and I always come away energized and fired up about what's happening with our organization and what's happening for all of you. I mean, this is what we're doing it for, and we are doing it to help all of you that are living with this disease. You know, ultimately, I want every person that's on this call to be here on the ALKtALK 12 years from now, and then 12 years after that, and 12 years after that. I don't have any plans on going anywhere, and I don't want any of you guys to go anywhere. I want all of us to be living long, healthy, happy lives, and that's what we're working towards. So thanks for the opportunity to say that, Mark. And again, thanks for, Mark is why these ALKtALKs exist, and this ability to have this community. And I believe in the power of community, and the fact that Mark had this idea and has kept it up is really pretty remarkable. So thank you, Mark, for being so persistent and resilient.
Yeah, about that. But I see all these thumbs up, hearts, clapping. going through the screen. I don't know if you guys see that, but it's really cool. And Summer and Dan Carito really help out. And I also, my last point before I'll shut my mouth is we have 5 or 6 TKIs, and we have other, our chemo works very well for us typically. I mean, these drugs have to come from us. And I think the other lung cancer oncogenes or small cell, large cell is, they don't have the opportunities that we have, and we have to really fund this ourselves. And am I wrong? Am I right? I mean, I'm
Nope.
not in the RAC committees. I'm not in any of those committees, but
And
Summer.
Kirk and I are in those calls, like listening to a foreign language. We're not really sure, but we can be in there just listening and learning and being inspired in those meetings and advocating for sure for this community. Um, you just made such a great point. Okay. Um, and I've heard Ken express this so many times that these patients look good, that we're doing good until we're not, though, right? We are moving along, and then early on, some of us find out we're short responders, or you're silently going through a massive progression but feeling good, and you have no idea until that next scan what is about to unleash. So the time really is now to help set these things in motion. That exactly in 23 there was one trial, in 24 there was one trial, and now 3, by Q4 in 2025, and 6 coming up in 2026. It is truly amazing. And yeah, if I have to be a cancer patient, I am glad to be in it with all of you right now in this time, because yeah, it's a time for miracles, it seems. So thank you all so much. Mark, anything else you want to add?
Just give us a heads up. We have one more coming up for the month. Is that one been, do we have that
Oh,
date
yeah, we
locked
do.
in? All right.
Yes, we do. We're locked in. And that we'll talk about the 2 different Astellas trials or gilteritinib trials. Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. With Angel Chin is the PI for both of them. So, and those originated, if you had seen the Dr. Katamaya talk last spring, or maybe it was last March, a Japanese researcher. And again, how Kirk and others Colin were explaining how this was all brought to the University of Michigan. I believe it was Jeff, but it's quite, again, amazing the power of the patients doing this research and finding out about things that are out there and then making them accessible to the ALK community. So that's what that will be, more information on those trials. And again, even if you are cruising along doing well on alectinib right now or lorlatinib, it's great to empower and educate yourself, just to put this information in your pocket. Then it lives on YouTube, and you know those options when you're lying in your scans, and that again, okay, I have a plan in place. And if X, Y, and Z, there's something out there for me. So
Yeah,
that's
All right.
I'll just put in a plug for Angel because Angel Chen, the doctor, has just said she is, really is appropriately named. She's an angel for our community, and we're lucky to have her. And she loves all of y'all. So that could be a wonderful talk all the way across the board. So I hope everybody will be able to attend that.
And she's so generous with her time that she gives for us and comes back again and again. I agree. We are so fortunate and always available to answer questions when we have them, and a member of our scientific advisory board. That is the last Sunday of the month. What is the date of that? Hold on. The 26th, I believe, October 20th. Is that right? Everybody, am I looking at the right place? Yeah, October 26th. And then looking ahead even further, November 9th, we are having Dr. Ross Camage on. So also mark your dates for that. Our November calendar will be coming up soon. And then we are having, I believe, possibly one more talk in November, and then a mental health, dealing with the stress of the holidays, and an ALK diagnosis. That talk will be in December. So again, please reach out to us, head to the website to figure out how you can share your story and have a patient story card made. We also have lots of samples that people in our community already made for us. So we're going to feature those on our website. So you'll be able to see. Thank you so much to all of you that participated in those. We'll be sharing those on our website for some inspiration for all of you. So Thank you. And thank you for sharing your Sunday evening with us. Presenters, thank you for all of the work you do behind the scenes. Thank you for coming on tonight. Thank you for everyone who is attending. And we hope to see you again soon. If you'd like to unmute and throw out some thanks and farewell for the evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Katie,
Thank you.
Sadia, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank